What if I told you that most economic plans don't fail because they don't have enough money, but because they ignore one simple truth? People respond to incentives, not rules, not values, but incentives. From CEOs chasing short-term wins to welfare programs that accidentally punish people for getting a job to housing policies that accidentally make rent go up and not down. If you understand incentives, you can spot these problems before they even happen. So in this video, I'll show you how and why incentives are the most powerful and also maybe the most misunderstood forces in economics. And also I'll talk a little bit about how this can help you make better decisions in your job, with money, or even in relationships. So today we'll cover what incentives are, why they often backfire, the psychology behind them, and how to use this way of thinking in everyday life. So let's dive in. So let's start simple. An incentive is anything that makes you more likely to do something or not do something. It could be money, like getting a bonus. It could be praise, like getting a compliment from your boss, for example. It could be fear of punishment or judgment, for example, or just convenience, like taking the closer parking spot at a grocery store. Incentives are everywhere. They shape what we do at work, with our families, in business, and even in politics. A few easy examples would be, for example, if you pay your kid $10 to clean their room, that's a financial incentive. Or you promise yourself pizza after going to the gym, that's a self-reward. Or if a coffee shop gives you every 10th coffee for free, that's a loyalty incentive. Or if your boss compliments people who speak up in meetings, that's a social incentive. Now imagine millions of people reacting to little incentives like these day after day. That's exactly how whole economies shift over time. Economist Stephen Landsberg once said, most of economics can be explained in 4 simple words. People respond to incentives. And he's absolutely right. Every policy, every business strategy, every market reaction at its core is a response to how incentives are structured. The thing is, incentives don't always work the way we expect. People don't react like perfect robots. We respond like humans. We're full of bias, full of emotions, and we like to take shortcuts. And that's where things often go wrong, even if they look perfect on paper. On paper, incentives seem simple. Want people to drive less? Make gas more expensive. If you want workers to be more productive, you could offer them bonuses. If you want people to save money, give them tax breaks. Sounds logical, right? But here's the problem again. People aren't robots. We're emotional, we get distracted, we care about status and not pure logic. And we often respond in ways that the system didn't expect. And that's where things go wrong. They only consider the direct incentive, the thing they're trying to influence, but then completely miss the indirect consequences that come with it. So let me show you what that looks like. In some countries, when someone on welfare gets a part-time job, their benefits get reduced or even taken away. So instead of earning more money, they might end up with the same or even less. The result is that it feels like they're being punished for working, and what many people do is that they don't take the job. Not because they're lazy, but because the system makes it a bad deal to try. Some companies' CEOs also get paid when the stock price goes up, especially in the short term. So instead of building great products or investing in staff, they might cut costs or lay off workers or buy back stock to boost numbers quickly. They're not always greedy, it's just that they're responding to the wrong incentive. And also after the financial crisis in 2008, banks that made risky decisions got rescued by the government. And this taught them, if we mess up, someone will save us. And that's called a moral hazard, and it encourages even more risky behavior in the future. All of those examples share the same pattern. The direct incentives make sense, but the indirect consequences were either ignored or completely misunderstood. As Nobel Prize-winning psychologist David Kahneman once said, we're not thinking machines that feel, we're feeling machines that think, sometimes. Incentives don't operate in a vacuum. They work through real people with fears, biases, with egos and their own goals. And if you ignore that, even the best idea on paper can backfire in real life. So far we've seen how incentives shape behavior and how they can backfire when you ignore the bigger picture. But here's something very important to highlight. Incentives don't just affect our logic, they affect our emotions. They shape how we feel about ourselves, what makes us proud, what makes us ashamed, included or respected. And that's where things get tricky, because people don't just ask what pays more, but they also ask what feels better, what makes me look good, and what fits my identity. So let me show you what that looks like. At work, imagine a company wants more teamwork, but at the end of the year, they only reward individual achievements. So what happens? People don't collaborate because they're not being rewarded for it. Or in society, let's say a government wants people to save more money, so they offer a small tax break. But meanwhile, everyone on Instagram is showing off vacations and luxury buys. So the social incentive to spend is stronger than the financial incentive to save. The point is, not all incentives are financial and not all decisions are rational. Behavioral economists like Richard Thaler and Cass Sunstein talk about this in their book Nudge. They show that just changing the way a choice is presented, like making it the default option to enroll in a retirement plan, can massively change how people behave even though nothing else changed. Because we're wired to follow the easiest path, the path of least resistance. And that path is shaped by emotion, status, fear of missing out, not just money. In fact, some of the strongest incentives are purely emotional and don't involve money at all, like being praised in public, not wanting to look bad, feeling like part of a group, or avoiding guilt or regret. Even when we say, I did it because it's the right thing to do, that's still an incentive, because doing the right thing makes us feel proud or helps us avoid shame. So yes, morals are incentives too. Understanding incentives isn't just helpful for governments or economists. It can also be a cheat code for your everyday life. Once you start seeing the world through incentives, you'll start to make better decisions in your career, in your finances, and in the way you deal with people. So here are 4 ways to use this knowledge. Number 1, use incentives on yourself. If you want to save more money, go to the gym, or focus better, willpower often fails. Because the short-term incentive to not do those things is usually stronger. So just flip the system. Set rules with immediate consequences. For example, if I skip the gym, I'll transfer 50 euros to an account I cannot touch. You can create reward loops. After hitting a savings goal, give yourself a planned guilt-free treat. Or use public commitment. Announce a financial target or a project deadline to your friends or audience, because the social pressure becomes your incentive. This is called incentive design, and it works way better than just motivation. Number 2 is understanding other people's real motivations. Most frustrations in business or relationships come from assuming people should just do the right thing. But people don't chase what's right, they chase what's rewarded. A coworker might not help you because they get 0 credit for teamwork. A boss might not promote you because your role is too valuable to replace. And a landlord might not fix something because there's no financial consequence if they don't. The key is to ask, what's their incentive to do what I want or to ignore it? And once you see that clearly, you stop taking things personally and start thinking strategically. Number 3 is making better financial decisions by understanding market incentives. Or in other words, markets don't reflect value, they reflect incentives and behavior. What does that mean? Why do some asset bubbles form? Because early gains create FOMO, and people are incentivized to jump in before they understand the risk. Why do financial advisors sometimes give bad advice? Because many are incentivized to sell you products that they earn commissions on. And why do companies cut costs on customer service? Because shareholders often reward short-term margins, not long-term loyalty. If you want to invest smarter or avoid financial traps, always ask, what incentive does the other side have here? And who benefits if I say yes? And number 4 is designing incentives in your own systems, even if you're not in charge. You don't have to be the government to design good systems. You do it every time you run a team, lead a project, manage a household, or just run your own schedule. Incentives aren't just tools for economists. They are how you shape behavior, quietly, effectively, and without needing to convince anyone. And the best part is, once you start using this lens, you'll stop complaining like, why did they do that? And you start asking the better question, what was their incentive to do it? Because that's how you stop reacting to systems and start designing them. So if there's one takeaway from this video, it's this: incentives shape behavior. Always. Whether it's taxes, promotions, investing, savings, or in relationships, people don't do what's right. They do what makes sense to them based on the rewards and penalties around them. So if something isn't working, ask, is the system rewarding the wrong thing? Is this person doing what they're incentivized to do? And am I using incentives to help myself or fighting against them? Because once you understand this, you stop forcing willpower and you start designing smarter systems, not just for others, but for yourself.